My name is Rachel Carrington. I'm 34, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who kept everything running, first in my family, then in my friendships, then in my career. I was the responsible one, the dependable one. Until the day I realized my sister only loved me when I made her life easier. It started with a voicemail, one she didn't know I'd kept. Not a long one, 31 seconds. Just her voice, raw and trembling, calling me at 3:17 a.m. 2 years ago. That night, I drove across town in a storm to sit on her bathroom floor while she cried over her husband cheating. Again. I took care of her, helped her pack, paid the security deposit on her new apartment, and when she asked me not to tell our parents, I didn't. I held her secrets like I always had. So when she told me to get over it last week, I had to play it back, just to remember that I wasn't imagining how much I'd done for her. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It began with a wedding invitation I didn't receive. I found out the way I find out everything lately, through someone else's overshare. A mutual friend tagged my sister Jenna in a group photo on Instagram, her bridal shower. There she was, surrounded by friends, laughing in that overly posed, champagne-in-hand way people do when they're pretending their life is perfectly staged. Her fiancé, Mitch, wasn't in the photo, but the Jenna and Mitch 2024 tag told me everything I needed to know. I stared at the screen like it would change if I blinked hard enough. My heart didn't race. Not at first. I just felt tired. A slow, dull ache spread behind my ribs. I scrolled through the post again, looking for any clue that this wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was an engagement party, a second shower for a different side of the family. Maybe I'd been accidentally left off the guest list. But I knew. In my gut, I knew. I wasn't invited. And not just to the shower. There was no save the date, no call, no text, no mention of a venue or address, or even a whisper of a timeline. I hadn't even known she was engaged. The betrayal didn't knock me over all at once. It bled into me slowly, like water soaking into fabric. I checked my texts. The last one from Jenna was 6 weeks ago, asking if I could pick up Mom's prescription while she was swamped. No wedding talk, no sister talk, just a request, like always. I closed the app, tossed my phone on the counter, and stood in the middle of my kitchen, feeling like I'd been left behind in a story I didn't even know was happening. And worse than being left out was the realization that no one thought I'd have anything to say about it, because they all assumed I'd be fine. I was always fine. That night, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop, intending to distract myself with work emails or a late-night task list, my usual method of numbing. But instead, I found myself opening a folder I hadn't touched in almost a year. It was simply titled, Jenna. Inside were screenshots, notes, a few scanned copies of things I'd helped her with over the years. Paperwork for a car loan she couldn't get approved on her own. An old lease in my name. Venmo transfers for groceries and utilities when she was between jobs. And the voicemail. I hit play. Her voice was shaky. Rach, please, I don't know who else to call. I think he's cheating again. Can you come? I can't be alone right now. I stared at the screen while it played. My chest tightened. It wasn't anger I felt. It was mourning. For the version of our relationship I thought was real. For the bond I'd invested in like it would always be there. I'd always been the safe one to call. And now I wasn't even worth an invite. The next morning I called our mother. "Oh, honey," she said when I asked about the wedding. "I thought you knew." "I didn't." "Well, maybe she's planning to tell you. You know how Jenna is." Yes, I did. She was impulsive, sensitive, the one everyone tiptoed around. Our family revolved around Jenna's mood like it was the weather. Sunshine one moment, a storm the next. And I was the barometer. The one who knew how to fix things, how to diffuse, how to disappear when needed. "I just don't want to stir anything up," Mom said. "This is her time. Maybe you two can talk after the big day?" The big day that I wasn't part of. I hung up and sat on the edge of my bed, blinking against the sting behind my eyes. I thought of every birthday I'd helped her plan, every all-nighter I'd pulled helping her rewrite resumes or recover from her latest meltdown. I thought of the time I drove 4 hours in a snowstorm to pick her up after a fight with Mitch, only for her to go back to him the next day and act like nothing happened. And I thought of how, when I got divorced last year, she never even asked why. She showed up once with a bottle of rosé and said, "At least you didn't have kids. Just move on." Just move on, as if my life hadn't imploded, as if my grief was a bad look. Now she was marrying a man she once begged me to help her leave, a man I'd comforted her through, and I was being erased from the picture entirely. That weekend, I saw our cousin Ava at a coffee shop. She walked in like she hadn't just been tagged in every bridal shower photo. "Oh my God, Rachel, are you coming to the wedding?" I blinked. "I wasn't invited." Her smile dropped. "Oh, I thought you were—" "I'm not." There was a pause. Her voice dropped an octave. "That's really messed up." I nodded. "Yeah." She hesitated. "You know, Jenna said you'd probably just judge her for going through with it, that you'd make it about you." That line lodged in my throat like a splinter, because that's what this was really about. I stopped playing my part. I stopped coddling her. I had the nerve to be honest, to step back. And in doing so, I made her feel something she didn't want to feel. Accountable. So she rewrote the script. I was the cold sister, the dramatic one, the overreactor, and she was the bride, the victim, the center of the universe. Well, if she wanted to act like I was the villain, she'd better be ready for the next scene. I pulled out my phone, opened the voicemail again. This time, I saved it to a backup drive. Because I wasn't going to pretend anymore, she told me to get over it. So I played the voicemail she forgot I saved, and for the first time, I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. I told myself I wasn't going to say anything, that I'd rise above it, that maybe Jenna would come around, that I didn't need to confront someone who had so clearly written me out of the picture. But then I saw her at our parents' house the following Sunday. She was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through floral arrangement samples with our mom, sipping iced coffee like she hadn't erased me from her wedding, and our family. I'd only stopped by to drop off Dad's blood pressure monitor. He'd forgotten it at my place after his last doctor's appointment, the one I scheduled, drove him to, and took notes for because Rachel always handles that stuff. She looked up at me with that sugary smile she uses when she's trying to pretend things aren't awkward. "Hey, stranger." I placed the monitor on the counter. Mom looked between us like she suddenly regretted inviting me. "Didn't know you'd be here," I said, trying to keep my voice flat. "Well, I live here now," Jenna replied with a tight laugh. "Temporarily, while we renovate Mitch's place." Of course, she'd moved back home. Again. Something she used to mock me for even considering after my divorce. "You're too independent for that," she'd said. "You wouldn't survive under Mom's roof." I took a slow breath. "You want to tell me why I had to find out about your wedding from Instagram?" Mom cleared her throat. "Girls, maybe now's not the—" Jenna didn't even look flustered. She just shrugged, still flipping through her planner like this was a mild inconvenience. "I didn't think you'd want to come." My hands curled around the edge of the counter. "You didn't think I'd want to come to my own sister's wedding? You've been so detached lately, since your divorce, and you haven't exactly been supportive about Mitch." I let out a bitter laugh. "You mean I wasn't supportive of you marrying a man who cheated on you repeatedly and called you unstable in front of our entire family? Sorry for that." Jenna's jaw tightened. "People grow, Rachel. Not everyone wants to be defined by their worst moments." I stepped forward. "And not everyone gets to rewrite history and act like the people who helped them survive don't exist." "You didn't help me," she snapped, eyes flashing now. "You made me feel pathetic. You hovered. You took over. Like I was some project. Like you were better than me." That hit harder than I wanted it to. Mom stood up. "Okay, enough. This isn't productive." "No, Mom," I said, turning toward her. You don't get to silence this. Not this time." I turned back to Jenna. "I was the one you called at 3 a.m. crying. I was the one who paid your first rent. I was the one who sat with you in the ER when you thought you might be pregnant and didn't know what to do. I was there. You just didn't like what it looked like when someone finally held a mirror up to your choices." "I didn't ask you to do any of that," she muttered. "No," I said, stepping even closer. "You didn't. You just expected me to, because that's the version of me you built your life around. Rachel the fixer. Rachel the responsible one. Rachel who never falls apart." Jenna looked away, her mouth tight. She didn't deny it. And that's when I knew she wasn't angry at me. She was ashamed. Because somewhere inside she remembered it too. The voicemail, the pleading. The night she slept on my couch for a week while I rearranged my life to make space for her crisis. She remembered. She just couldn't hold both truths at once. That I saved her, and that I wasn't perfect while doing it. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" I asked, quieter now. "Why didn't you tell me you were getting married?" She finally looked up. Her eyes weren't angry anymore. Just tired. "Because I didn't want to owe you again." I blinked. "You don't." She laughed once. "Yes, I do. That's the thing, Rach. With you, there's always a ledger. You're nice and generous and capable, but every favor gets stored like a receipt. Every time someone lets you down, it's logged, tallied, used later." That stunned me. Because she wasn't completely wrong. I did keep track, not to punish, but to understand, to make sense of why I always felt like I gave more than I got. I kept track because no one else ever did. "I don't keep receipts," I said, voice low. "I keep reminders of when I mattered, because no one ever just says it." Jenna's lip trembled. "I wanted to include you," she said finally, "but I knew if I did, I'd be opening myself up to judgment. And I didn't think I could take it. I didn't want to see that look on your face." The one I was wearing now. I looked away, my throat aching. "I never wanted you to feel like less," I said. "I just didn't know how to stop being the one who carried everything." Mom sat down, her expression unreadable. "I think," she said quietly, "we all got too comfortable letting you be the strong one." No one moved. The silence wasn't sharp anymore. It was heavy, but in a necessary way, like the air before rain. Jenna stood up. "I can't undo how I handled this," she said. "But I don't want to lose you." I looked at her, my sister, my mirror, my burden, my wound. "I don't want to be needed anymore," I said. "I want to be wanted." Jenna nodded slowly. "Okay." She walked out a few minutes later. No hug, no promises. But something in the air had shifted. Later that night, I pulled up the voicemail again, and then I deleted it. Not as an act of forgiveness, but because I didn't need it to prove anything anymore. Not to her, and not to me. It's amazing how much silence weighs when you're used to filling it. After that day at my parents' house, I didn't hear from Jenna for almost 2 weeks. No texts, no emails, no passive-aggressive Instagram posts, just nothing. And in that nothing, I started to notice how much space I took up trying to be someone useful. Not just for Jenna, but for everyone. My boss, my friends, my parents, the mailman, strangers on planes. I'd been performing a role for so long, I couldn't tell where the act ended, and I began. I didn't know how to just be with people. I knew how to help them, manage them, solve their problems. But when there was nothing to fix, I unraveled. I started waking up with a tightness in my chest, the kind that didn't go away with deep breaths or yoga or green juice. I couldn't focus at work. I kept rereading the same emails, trying to summon the version of myself who could handle everything without blinking. But she was gone, and I wasn't sure I wanted her back. So I called Aaron. She's the friend who's known me longest, since college. She saw me before I became the dependable one, back when I was just a sleep-deprived journalism major with cheap wine and big feelings and no pressure to be perfect. She met me at a little Thai place downtown, the kind of spot that still felt like a secret, with flickering candles and too much noise and no expectations. "You look like hell," she said, sliding into the booth. "I'm trying a new look," I replied. She smiled. Then she reached across the table, took one look at me, and said, "Talk." I didn't start with the wedding, or the voicemail, or even Jenna. I started with the question that had been living under my skin like a splinter. What if I'm only lovable when I'm useful? She didn't respond right away. She let it sit. That's one of the reasons I still call her. She doesn't rush the pain. Finally, she said, "Did someone actually say that to you? Or is that the story you've been telling yourself?" I looked down at my hands. "Is there a difference?" Erin nodded slowly. "There is, but only once you see it." She took a sip of her tea. "You were always the one who had your shit together," she continued. "But not because you wanted to be, because no one else stepped up. You filled the cracks because no one else would." I didn't argue. "But somewhere along the way, you started thinking being needed was the same as being loved." I stared at her. "It's not? No, love isn't about what you give. It's about who stays when you stop giving." I blinked hard. "You want to know the difference between you and Jenna?" she said. "God, please enlighten me." "You apologize for taking up space. She expects it." That one hurt, because it was true. "I don't want to be the fixer anymore," I said quietly, "but I don't know how to be anything else." "You don't have to know yet," she said. "You just have to stop tying your worth to what you do for other people." That night, I sat in my car long after I got home. I pulled out a notebook I kept in the glove box, my emergency thoughts journal, and wrote down something that felt like a confession. I don't want to be the strong one anymore. I want to be held. I didn't know who I was writing it to. Maybe the universe, maybe my mother, maybe myself. But it was the first time I'd admitted it out loud. 2 days later, Jenna texted, "Can you come by this weekend? Mitch will be out. I want to talk." Just that. No emojis. No punctuation. For a moment, I almost ignored it. I didn't owe her this conversation. But something deeper said go. Not for her, but for me. To finally say what I'd spent a decade swallowing. When I got there, she was already waiting in the driveway, arms crossed like she'd been rehearsing something and changed her mind halfway through. We went inside. The house was quiet, too quiet. No candles, no music, no ambiance curated for effect. It was just her, in sweatpants, with under-eye circles and no defense mechanisms. She sat down on the couch and gestured to the spot beside her. I sat across instead. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "Good," I replied, "because it's not your job to fix it." She looked startled. "I mean it," I continued. "I don't need you to perform anything. I just need the truth." Jenna twisted a throw pillow in her lap. "I always thought you'd be fine," she said. "No matter what. You were the one who could handle things. I thought you didn't need anyone." "I did," I said. "I just got really good at pretending I didn't, because it made everyone else more comfortable." She nodded slowly. "I think I built my whole identity on being the broken one," she said. "And when you started showing cracks, I panicked, because if you weren't perfect, then who was I?" It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. And suddenly, I saw us not as enemies, not even as opposites, but as women trapped in roles that were never ours to begin with. The perfect one. The broken one. The responsible one. The emotional one. Neither of us got to be whole. "I wish I'd told you earlier," I said, "about the divorce, about what I went through, about how alone I felt." "I wish I'd let you," she replied. There was no big hug, no dramatic music cue, just two sisters sitting in the quiet, And for the first time, no one tried to fix anything. We just let it be. Messy, human, real. When I got home that night, I didn't check my email. I didn't organize my sock drawer. I didn't open a spreadsheet. I sat down on the floor, lit a candle, and whispered, "I'm not a problem to solve." And for the first time, I believed it. The week after Jenna and I sat on her couch in that quiet, unlit house, nothing huge happened. No confetti moment. No sweeping declarations. No "I've seen the light" monologue from her or anyone else. And yet, I felt different. Like something fundamental had shifted. Not just in her, but in me. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to validate my pain. I wasn't bracing for impact. I wasn't spinning plates to keep the peace. I was just living. And it was strangely quiet. Then Mom called. Not with a request, not with news. Just, "Can you come over this weekend? Your father and I would like to talk." The phrasing set something tight in my chest. I'd spent my life fielding that phrase as a warning. We need to talk. In my family, that never meant open dialogue. It meant correction, realignment, a subtle way of saying, "You've stepped out of the role we assigned you. Time to step back in." But this time, I was different. So I said yes, but on my terms. Saturday morning, late, after I'd gone to yoga, taken myself to brunch, and spent an indulgent hour reading a novel I didn't plan to annotate or quote in conversation. Just for me. I walked into their house carrying nothing. Not a casserole, not a to-do list, not the weight of proving I was a good daughter. Just myself. They were already in the kitchen. Mom was fussing with mugs even though we all knew she didn't really want tea, and Dad was sitting at the table pretending to check something on his phone. They both looked up when I walked in, like they weren't sure which version of me would show up. I sat across from them and waited. It was Mom who spoke first. "I didn't realize how much I leaned on you." I blinked. That wasn't where I thought this would go. "I always thought I was being efficient," she continued. "You were the one who got things done, who didn't complain, so I assumed it was easy for you." I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. I could see how much effort it took her to say it. "It wasn't easy," I said. "I just knew there wasn't room to fall apart." Dad looked up then, his brow furrowed. "Did we make you feel like you couldn't?" I tilted my head. "Not with your words, but with your relief." They exchanged a look. "We got used to you being okay," he admitted. "And when you weren't, I guess we didn't know how to respond." Mom reached across the table and placed her hand near mine, not touching, but close. "I want to be better at seeing you," she said softly. "Not just what you do for us, but you." It cracked something in me, not a wound, but a wall. "I want that too," I said, "but I need space to not be the strong one. I need you to let me show up messy sometimes. I need to not always be the backup plan." Mom nodded slowly. "Okay." Not "I understand," not "that's fair," just "okay." But that was enough, because it was the first time she didn't try to justify herself. She just let my words land. We sat in silence for a while. Eventually, Dad asked if I wanted lunch, and we made sandwiches like we used to when I was in high school. Cold turkey, extra mustard, a pickle on the side. Nothing profound, just ordinary. But the kind of ordinary that had never felt safe before. And somehow, now it did. The next weekend, Jenna sent me a photo. Her wedding dress. Not staged, not filtered, just her, in the boutique mirror, biting her lip, eyes full of uncertainty. "Still figuring out how I feel about this one? Want to help me decide?" That was the invitation I'd needed all along. Not to the party, but to the process, to her real life. I showed up the next day, and she let me. She still didn't offer a formal apology, but halfway through the appointment she said, "I kept picturing what you'd say about the neckline, not because I was afraid, because I missed it." And I knew what she meant. There are kinds of love we only understand once they've gone quiet. Jenna had lost mine in the noise of her own survival, and now, like me, she was learning how to speak again. It wasn't perfect. We still snapped at each other. We still danced around certain topics. But there was more trying now, less assuming, more listening. The more I showed up as my full self, the more people around me had to adjust or fade out. Some did fade, like our cousin Ava, who told me I was being too dramatic for sharing my story online, or Mitch, who barely looked me in the eye when I started showing up to family dinners again. But that didn't bother me, because the people who stayed, they stayed with intention. One night, I got dinner with Erin again. She raised her glass and said, "You're different now. It's a good look on you." I smiled. "I stopped being who everyone expected," I said. "And I didn't die." She laughed. "That's the trick, isn't it?" Later that night, I journaled again. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just saying no without explaining. Sometimes it's showing up late without apology. Sometimes it's deleting the contact you used to wait by the phone for. Sometimes it's choosing yourself in quiet, boring, radical ways. I didn't realize I'd cried until I saw the ink smudge. But they weren't sad tears. They were recognition. I was finally rebuilding a version of myself that wasn't based on usefulness, neatness, or approval. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of being seen. It's been 8 months since the dress appointment, 7 since I was re-added to the family group chat, 6 since my mother said, completely unprompted, "Don't worry about bringing anything. Just come to be with us." And exactly 1 week since Jenna's wedding. Yes, I went. No, I didn't wear the dress she picked for me. I wore one I chose myself, deep green, soft and strong, elegant without trying. When she first saw it, she raised an eyebrow but said nothing. And that, more than anything, told me we'd grown. The wedding was beautiful, not perfect. The flower girl cried during the vows, and someone spilled red wine down the side of the cake before the first dance, but it felt real, human. Nobody asked me to play event coordinator. I didn't spend the reception wiping down counters or corralling cousins. I drank Prosecco, danced twice, and left when I was tired, with no guilt. There was a moment, though, one I keep returning to in my mind. It happened during dinner, somewhere between the toasts and the second course. I was seated at a table with family friends, including a woman I hadn't seen in years. She leaned toward me and said, "You must be so proud of your sister. What a beautiful bride." I nodded. "She is." She looked me up and down and smiled. "And you always seemed so put together." "Still do. I bet you were the glue in your family." I paused, fork hovering. Once I would have nodded, laughed, accepted that role like a badge of honor. This time I just said, "Not anymore." And it felt like freedom. Now it's a Sunday in late spring, the kind that teases summer without fully letting go of the breeze. I'm at my parents' house for brunch, a real one this time. Not out of obligation, not because I planned it, just because they asked and I said yes. I walk in carrying nothing but a bottle of orange juice. That alone would have startled my mother a year ago, but now she just waves me in and says, "We've got everything else." There's music playing, something jazzy. Alina's here too, with her 2 boys who immediately run to hug my legs like I'm a celebrity. Mom is pulling muffins out of the oven. Dad is setting the table, half grumbling about the orange plates Mom insists are for brunch energy. And Jenna? She's in the living room, barefoot, hair down, one hand resting on a now unmistakable curve beneath her dress. Pregnant, she told me first, before the announcement, before the Instagram post. She called me, voice trembling, and said, "I don't know if I'm ready, but I want to be." I didn't tell her what to do. I didn't send a checklist or a lecture or a podcast link. I just said, "You're not alone." It felt like enough. It was enough. At the brunch table, she raises her glass of sparkling water and grins. "To soft starts." Everyone cheers. And no one looks to me to lead it. Later, While the kids are playing outside and Dad is napping in his chair, I find myself sitting alone at the kitchen island, just watching the light move across the floor. It's one of those quiet, slow hours that used to make me anxious, where there's nothing to fix, no task to complete, no performance to hold together. I feel a hand on my shoulder. It's Mom. She doesn't say anything for a long moment, just leans against the counter beside me, sipping her coffee. Then quietly, "I used to think strength was never needing help, but maybe it's knowing when to ask." I glance at her. "I used to think love was doing everything for everyone, but maybe it's being loved even when you do nothing at all." She nods, and for the first time, I don't feel like her daughter trying to impress her. Just her daughter, fully. Later, Jenna joins me outside. We sit on the steps, watching the boys chase bubbles across the lawn. She hands me a picture from her wedding, a candid one. I didn't know it had been taken. I'm laughing, head back, free. "I didn't remember seeing you like that," she says softly. "Like what?" "Not holding everything." I smile, tracing the edge of the photo. "I'm learning to hold myself first." She nudges me. "I'm glad you stayed." I glance at her. "I almost didn't." "I know," she says, "and I wouldn't have blamed you if you didn't." There's something holy about that kind of acknowledgement, the kind that doesn't beg forgiveness, but offers presence. It doesn't fix the past. It simply honors that it happened. That's where healing lives now, in the small moments, the gaps between what used to hurt and what no longer does. A few days later, I'm at my apartment when a message lands in my inbox. It's from a stranger who read one of my recent blog posts. She writes, "Your words made me realize I'm not broken for wanting someone to ask me how I'm doing, even if I'm the one who usually holds everyone else. Thank you." I sit with it for a long time. Then I reply, "You're not broken. You're just tired of auditioning for love. Stop. You're already enough, and maybe that's the thing I wish someone had told me years ago. Not thank you for all you do, not you're so strong, not you're the rock. Just, you matter, even when you do nothing for anyone but yourself." I believe that now. Finally. And if no one else has told you today, let this be the moment that you hear it. From me, to you. Have you ever been excluded by the people who were supposed to love you most? What did you do with that pain? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this one made you feel seen. You are not alone. You are not too much. And you never had to earn your seat at the table. Not here, not anymore.